Will that feed any parts of my soul? Most likely not. But I think that's a good frame. Is it's so hard to explain fulfillment because you can't see it. You can't see fulfillment. You can see happiness, quote unquote, at least the perception of.
And so it's this weird thing where it's like we avoid pain, we avoid discomfort, we avoid challenge, but yet that's the one thing that helps us grow and contribute beyond ourselves, because when we grow more, we can contribute more, and then we're fulfilled.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1082, Are You Making Emotional Decisions or Logical Ones? Today, for episode number 1083, Happy Saturday, the difference between happiness and fulfillment. Part of my story, Alan, you've heard this. Maybe the listeners haven't heard this in a long time. When I was the least happy, or I guess I will say and it's hard to say this because we're talking about happiness and fulfillment, but when I was the least fulfilled, I had all the things that would show that I was the most, quote unquote, happy. I had a fast car. I had the body of my dreams. I had money. I had an attractive partner. I had all the things that are the markers of happiness and success, but I was the most miserable at that point. And when I tell that story on podcasts, people often say, well, you had everything. Why weren't you happy? And this is what I usually say. I think I was quote unquote happy because happiness is results based. And this is the analogy I use. If this podcast goes well, and I say this to the host, I will be happy. If we get to the end of this and you love me and you feel like I added value, I'm going to be very happy about my performance. Regardless of how this podcast goes, I am going to be fulfilled because I am in the process of doing something that I feel is bringing me towards my ultimate goals. I am in the process of being aligned and continuing to be in alignment. That's the difference from my perspective between happiness and fulfillment. So happiness is a result. Fulfillment is being in the process of doing something. And that's usually my description and my understanding of it. But we haven't talked about fulfillment in a long time, Alan, and I'm sure you've uncovered some more layers around fulfillment. So I figured let's hop on here onto these microphones live, but not live because it's repurposed, but you and I are live together in this moment. So I had one of these. I had a Monster today, so I'm definitely a little hyped up. I'm a little hyped up.
He screwed up the intro for the first time.
I did, yeah. I'm all hyped up on Mountain Dew.
On Mountain Dew.
Let's do it. Let's bring the value.
One of my favorite topics of all time.
Yes.
And we're probably going to be pretty giggly. I can anticipate it. So I tell this story, and I told this story on stage at Next Level Live 2022. This was in March. I said that we've all seen that meme online of John Lennon. It's a story where John Lennon was a little kid, and the teacher had an assignment that said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And John Lennon wrote down happy. And the teacher said, you didn't understand the assignment. And John Lennon said, no, you don't understand life. I have no idea whether or not that story's true. I just remember always ruminating on it, essentially.
Alan,
because I've spent my whole...
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important to me that whether or not I know that it's true. For some reason, that's why I really like movies that, and this is a total side tangent, I like movies that are inspired by a true story or based on a true story. I like them more. I think there's something about something that actually happened that resonates more deeply with me. Very, very important. So the truth is something Kevin and I value very, very highly. But so speaking of the truth, I think that we were undersold something. We were oversold happiness and we were undersold fulfillment. That is my thesis. I really believe that strongly. If you were to describe from the outside looking in Kevin and I's lives in our mid-20s, you would see two men who made a ton of money, who got to do pretty much whatever they want within reason, who had beautiful girlfriends, who had tons of friends, and essentially achieved everything they thought would make them happy. And they both made six figures, that kind of thing. But neither one of us were very fulfilled, and that's actually why he had suicidal ideation and I got in that car accident and I had tons of regret. And then one of the reasons this podcast was essentially born out of Kevin and I both realizing that we were deeply unfulfilled. And so it makes sense that 1,000 episodes later we're talking about this still. And we understand it at a deeper level than we used to. So there's a couple things I want to share about fulfillment real quick. Number one is, let's go back to, the teacher saying you don't understand the assignment, and John Lennon saying you don't understand life. What do you want to be when you grow up? John Lennon said happy. Here's the problem. We were certainly not taught, and this is what I talked about on stage, we were not taught what happiness really is. We were not taught how to achieve it, and we certainly were not taught how to sustain it. And so I have this framework that I call the happiness framework, and it's a simple formula with 3 parts. The first part is joy. And I got this from Matthew McConaughey's speech at the Houston commencement. He said, joy is when you're enjoying the present moment, when you're in the process of enjoying what you're doing in that moment. So right now, I am enjoying this episode. So I'm in joy. Okay, joy is not result reliant like Kevin was talking about. Pleasure is always result reliant. If this podcast goes well, then I will feel good about it. If this podcast does not go well, I will not feel good about it. And by the way, that's a good thing. You're not supposed to do negative things and then feel good about it. It's not a bad thing, okay? Eating Oreos will always be more pleasurable than eating kale. It's just biology. There's more sugar. It's supposed to be that way, okay? So pleasure is the trap, though. And I want people to understand that pleasure is the trap. And what I mean by the trap is, and take it from me, I grew up in a pleasure-centered paradigm. A pleasure-centered paradigm is a deep belief that life is about having fun and that life is about enjoying yourself. Life is not just about having fun and enjoying yourself. If you think about someone who only ever has fun and enjoys themselves to the maximum amount of current pleasure, they're probably a train wreck. They probably do drugs and alcohol. They probably eat whatever they want, whenever they want. They probably have no structure, no schedule, no calendar, no future, no goals, no dreams. The large majority of positive growth, impact, profitability, contribution are delayed gratification. And we've talked about this for many, many episodes, so unless you're a new listener, you already know what we're talking about. So pleasure, in my opinion, is a little bit of a trap. It doesn't mean you can't have any pleasure, but if you are only focused on current pleasure, there's a lot of things at the click of a button that are available to you. You can spend money you don't have. You can watch porn. You can eat a ton of junk food at the next convenience store. You can XYZ, right? Number 3. So first is joy, then you've got pleasure. The third is fulfillment. Fulfillment is by far the most important of the 3, in my opinion. And that's what I optimize for. That's why I'm writing a book called Optimizing for Fulfillment. And I have a fulfillment framework. Fulfillment, I believe, is the soul's recognition of alignment with its highest calling, which essentially means you are growing to your greatest capabilities. You are contributing with that growth to the world in a unique way that's meaningful to you, and the quality of your life is improving over time. That's essentially the fulfillment formula. And Emilia, on our way to your wedding party, Kev, she said this about fulfillment that I thought was really, really powerful. We always have deep masterminds in the car whenever we're headed somewhere. She said this. She said, Alan, is your past self, your childhood self, proud of the man you've become? And I lit up. I was like, oh my God, yeah. I would have loved to meet a little boy Alan, wanted so desperately to learn from current Alan or someone like me. And then she said, okay, and this is an even more powerful question in my opinion. Of course I would think that, and you'll know when I say it, Kev. She said, is your future self grateful for who you are now and what you're doing now and how you're operating now? Is your future self glad and grateful for who you are now? Are they thankful? Are they going to thank you? Is your future 10 years from now self going to thank you for the way you're operating now? Or is it going to go, yo, you really screwed that up? That kind of thing. And I had a moment where I'm like, that's alignment. That's fulfillment. If your childhood self is inspired and proud and looks up to you now, and your future self is grateful for the way you're operating now, I think you're at 5. Here's the problem. These are the 3. You have your past self being proud of you and inspired by you. You have your future self being grateful for you in advance. And then you have your current self. Is your current self enjoying your life? And I think those are the 3. And Kev, I think, and of course I would think this, that the third one is the least important. But I actually think, if I'm more intelligent than that, I actually think they're equally important. If you can say my childhood self is truly inspired and proud of my current self, my future self is going to thank my current self for the way my current self is operating, and my current self is fulfilled and happy, quote unquote, then I would say you are in alignment, and I would say you are fulfilled. And fulfillment is a different feeling. Your life right now is more challenging than it's ever been by far. I remember we did this on the whiteboard once in the studio. And Kevin talked about old Kevin and how 20% of his life was hard work and grinding, and 80% was pleasure. And he had a very pleasurable, easy life, but it was deeply unfulfilling. And then we did the opposite side of the whiteboard that said, how much of your life is challenging now? And he was like, oh, at least 80%, probably 90. And I was like, okay, how much is pleasurable? He's like, I don't know, 15, maybe 10. And I was like, which one is more fulfilling? And you said by far now. No. And so it's this weird thing where it's like we avoid pain, we avoid discomfort, we avoid challenge, but yet that's the one thing that helps us grow and contribute beyond ourselves, because when we grow more, we can contribute more, and then we're fulfilled. Because when we grow more and contribute more, the quality of our life tends to improve as well, because hopefully we're doing it profitably. But that's my take. What are your thoughts on that?
What are your thoughts on all that? So this is, I don't know. I told Alan, I was on a very deep podcast right before this, so if any part of me seems off, it's just because it was a hyper-conscious episode, and I was tearing up, and it was a whole thing. What if, Alan, what if happiness is based on meeting the needs of the ego, and fulfillment is meeting the needs of the soul?
I would say that's very accurate.
I think that's something that lands for me is I want a Mercedes AMG GTR. So I don't know, $180,000 car, whatever it is. But I do not expect that to light me up internally. I expect that will make me feel good about my purchase, and it will make me feel a certain way. But I do not, this is really what I'm trying to say, I do not expect that to fill any voids I have within myself. That's not why I'm getting it. Now,
well,
I
that's
think
good, because it won't.
Right. Well, I know that because I've had...
If anything, it might make them worse.
I've had nice cars in the past, so it's not like... But again, I had to learn that, right? So will that feed certain parts of my ego? Yes, 100%. 100%. Will that feed any parts of my soul? Most likely not. But I think that's a good frame. Is it's so hard to explain fulfillment because you can't see it. You can't see fulfillment. You can see happiness, quote unquote.
Right.
At least the perception of.
Well, Kev, I remember we were doing a meetup about fulfillment, and I think this was one that you were not on. Yeah, this is one of the ones when you were away in Colorado.
Well,
and I was trying to find an old photo of you in your childhood.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, because I was sick and tired of using my photos, honestly.
Well, you have way more pictures than I do. That's probably
from back then, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Helen Baker from Melbourne, Australia. I'm an entrepreneur and a client of Alan's from Next Level University. I've had many business coaches in the past, and I can honestly say that Alan is seriously next level, and excuse the pun, but he has this unique ability to help you find a solution to your business problems using his intellect and his business modeling and his genuine, heartfelt desire to help you achieve your goals. I can be vulnerable with Alan, I can share anything and feel comfortable in his presence, knowing that at the end of our coaching sessions, I feel empowered to do incredible things. So if you're looking for a business coach, I highly recommend Alan, because his advice and his ability to coach you will be instrumental in achieving your success.
And you know that photo, Kev, of my favorite fitness photo of me, and then like the one, my least flattering photo ever of all time, essentially, back when I was drinking. You could see in my face the ego in the old photo of me at, I think it was like 24 or 25 or something like that. And then in the new photo, and maybe we'll put a link in the show notes to this photo because I want to give it to the listeners. You said you can't see fulfillment. You actually can.
Fair.
You actually can. And I never knew this before. You can't, based on anything, markers of success or cars or clothes or homes or whatever, but you can see it in people's energy. So at your wedding party, for example, I went into that wedding party from the frame of fulfillment. I was trying to look around and see who was fulfilled. And just as a study, just trying to understand. And I'll show the photo in the show notes. We'll have Ron put it in so you can download it. The left photo of me, you can see in my face if you zoom in, is ego. It just shows arrogance and ego is the best way to describe it. But deeply I was unfulfilled. But I didn't want anyone to know that, so I was hiding, kind of, you know? And then the other photo, yes, I'm healthier, obviously, physically fit and stuff like that, but like you can see how fulfilled I am. You can see in my face that I'm a truly happy, fulfilled human being. You can see it in the energy. So I do believe that I'm trying to see people for, and maybe this is a little esoteric, but like their energy more than their physical stuff. I think that I've been unintentionally hoodwinked, for lack of better phrasing, by things that aren't, that are more smoke and mirrors than anything. Yeah. And for our listeners, just to bring this down to earth, I'll tell this story briefly. I remember I was at Turtle Tavern. I've told this story before, Kev. I'll never forget it because it was one of the times I let myself down. I went and I said I wasn't going to drink, and I ended up drinking a couple. I think I had like 5 or 6 drinks or something. It was more than enough to get me buzzed / drunk because I hadn't drank in, I think, a year before that. And I was hanging out with a bunch of old friends. It was one of my friend's 30th birthday parties, Turtle Tavern in Milford. And I remember it was like a Saturday night or a Friday night. I think it was Saturday night. And it was late. I was there way too late. I shouldn't have been. And I remember I had this moment. It was very surreal for me. I was very present. Whenever I drink alcohol, I'm very, very present because it shuts off my future orientation. And I looked around, and there was an awesome song on. I don't know if it was Piano Man or one of those bar songs that's just awesome. And here's the problem with drinking, by the way. It is awesome. That's the problem. Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. That's why it's so detrimental, right? So don't let people say, oh, drinking's the worst. Like, no, drinking is not a positive thing if you let it go off the rails. But the reason why it's so challenging for people is because it's so enjoyable. But anyways, so I'm in this moment. I'm in the present moment. I buzzed, if not drunk, and I'm looking around at these people. And I'm in Turtle Tavern, okay? And I'm like, you would think these human beings are the happiest human beings on the entire planet. Like, everyone was hugging and everyone was laughing. It was like, you might as well pause time. Like in a movie, you pause time and you can see like everything going on. And I had this moment where I'm like, everyone in here is so happy. Last call. And, you know, and I was like, oh, I had this weird epiphany. I was like, this is the happiest moment of their week. This is Saturday night. After this, it's all downhill until next Saturday night. And I had this weird epiphany where I'm like, oh my God, I actually love my week. I love Mondays compared to the rest of the days. And obviously they're not perfect. But the point is that I remember what that was like. I remember when Friday and Saturday nights were like what I lived for. You can't look at a snapshot of someone's life when they are happy and then presuppose their whole life is happy. Because I'm telling you, in those times when I used to drink, you would have thought I was the happiest guy in the world because in that moment I actually was. But I wasn't fulfilled. And so that's the difference between happiness and fulfillment. Happiness is the present moment. Fulfillment is long-term. Fulfillment comes from being proud of the person you've become and the gifts you're giving to this world. And I'm so certain of that because I've been both. You know, I've been on either end of this. And I was deeply unfulfilled before, but I didn't really know it because we never learned what fulfillment was. And hopefully our listeners, you know, can benefit from this.
I wonder if everybody can recognize that or if you are just really good at recognizing fulfillment in other people. Because I would argue that that's the interesting thing about just social media as an example is you can see the car, you can see the house, you can see the body, the boat, whatever. I think it's very hard to read people based on fulfillment, like based on a picture.
I saw a picture of you. Maybe I'll send it to you after. there's a picture of you from when you were a kid. I think it was in your early 20s or late teens. You were very clearly deeply unfulfilled. And I wanted to use it as an example in one of the meetups.
But I wonder if you can recognize that better than most. That's all I'm saying.
Probably. Only because I've been trying to hone it. Yeah, I've been practicing that.
So I wonder if you're a listener and that doesn't necessarily jump off the page of like, I think that's okay. That doesn't mean, you know what I mean?
Well, can you see it in some of your past photos? How like unfulfilled you were?
Yeah, but I think it's different because it's me.
Oh.
And like, yeah, I could tell with you to a degree, but I've also worked on honing it a lot as well. So I don't know. I just wonder what the experience of somebody who maybe isn't as dialed in and pursuing fulfillment at the level we are, what their experience would be.
Well, the last thing I'll say on this episode is after 26, I decided to go all in on fulfillment.
Yeah.
And because I never wanted to chase shiny objects at the expense of my own fulfillment ever again, because that's where all my regret was. I achieved all my goals. That did not do it. So ever since then, Kevin and I have been more focused on our character and, for me, virtue and core values and inner work and personal development more so than any of the shiny stuff. And ironically, we're going to have more of the shiny stuff than we ever would have. So that's, it's an interesting thing. And again, we could probably do thousands of episodes on this.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to explain. It's an easy thing to explain, I think, with words, but it's very hard to like then go down. It's just an interesting, intricate topic.
How would you explain it to you in the past? Then we'll go.
I think the simplest version is, you're excited for your life. I think that's kind of like the simplest thing I would say. For me back then, I don't think if we went super deep, if you came to me and said, well, it's your soul's recognition of its self and alignment or something like that, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Man?
I know.
You get that
I gotta
from
be
Wedding
careful of that.
Crashers? What are you talking about?
I know.
So, but for me, it wouldn't have landed necessarily. But I think it's like, well, Kev, just imagine actually loving your life and feeling like you're making progress towards something greater than you currently have, but it's filling parts of you internally that you didn't know you had. Even that, I'd be like, dude, get out of here, man. Where's the Guinness, son? Where is it? Where's the Guinness? It's hard. It's such a hard thing because unless you've experienced it, it's very hard to recognize, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I got to be careful because I don't always think from that frame.
I'm trying really hard because even when you said like you can see it, I don't know, because then social media wouldn't work the way it works. I mean, how many happy couples, you know what I mean? It's not the same. I don't think people can recognize it.
It's a great point. You can see it when it's up against each other. Like the photos. So everyone, let's do this test. Check out the photo of me. No, check out the photo in the show notes. You'll see very clearly because they're next to each other. One of them is very unfulfilled and ego-driven, and the other one is deeply fulfilled. Yeah,
I have a question. Yeah. We're taking this off the rails. I love this. The podcast I was on was super deep.
Day.
So this is what this is. If you did not mention the word fulfillment and you asked two people, or you asked one person to look at the two pictures and say, what's the difference between the two? Like not physically, not body, whatever. What do you think people would say? You think they would say fulfillment, or do you think they'd say
no?
He's
They'd
happier?
say happier.
That's what I'm saying.
Happier. Yeah, 100%.
There's like a layer of understanding.
I think that's one of the world's biggest lies, unintentional lies. It's just that life is about happiness. It's not true. It's the wrong word. It's the wrong label. What does that even mean? Yeah. Even in the Constitution for the U.S., it's like the pursuit of happiness. You pursue it. It's never a steady thing. I think fulfillment can be timeless.
It's a hit. It's a hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's a UFC on Saturday. I will be very happy watching UFC, but it's not going to fill me up internally.
Right. I think a little tiny bit, maybe. But yeah, well, and that's a whole nother conversation.
I'll use that next time you say, hey man, you spent $75 on UFC. I think it filled me up a little bit.
It's important. It's the most important use of my time.
But it is. It's very similar to the episode we talked about with logic versus emotion. It's a balance. I think everybody requires a certain level of, we say like 80-20. Your R&R oftentimes is happiness, right? Alan watching a movie, but again, you do it, so it's a movie that's motivational, which will help.
I try.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting distinction also just to look at is it's not you should just never have happiness. It's just
of course.
Not at the expense.
It's part of the equation.
And not at the expense of a brighter future. You have to have the right. My old Kevin making a bunch of money and literally sitting on the couch from Saturday morning when he got home till Sunday when he left, like ordering pizza, watching porn, hanging out, drinking. That was too much. I wasn't fulfilled. There was no fulfillment there. That was just me chasing pleasure. And I don't think I felt happy either. I went way past that. So there's
chasing pleasure that you'll never catch.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. All right, we got to go because we're supposed to be doing 3 episodes here and we're out here jeffing.
Facts.
Next Level Nation, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, maybe you can't because you're listening and the vast majority of people are listening, we have a free course on the website. We've been talking about it fairly often, but I want to remind the amazing community members. So as you know, our goal is to add as much free value as humanly possible. So Alan and I sat down and we recorded a very, very valuable course. It's like an hour and a half. It's in our old studio. There's worksheets, it's video, and it's completely free. You can download it. You can save it to your laptop. You can watch it on your phone, download all the worksheets. And at the end of the day, we broke the things that we thought were the most important fundamentals from our perspective up into a free course, the Next Level 5 to Thrive. You can find it on the website.
Next Level 5 to Thrive.
Yeah.
So, Kev, you jeffed me, man. You don't know it, but you jeffed me. You were supposed to plug Podcast Growth U.
Oh, talk about it.
I was supposed to plug
I forgot.
the Next Level 5 to Thrive. It's
I
okay.
just went, oh, what's on the screen?
Yeah.
That's for me.
What's on the screen? And then I was like, what was I supposed to plug? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. So Kevin has started a podcast called Podcast Growth University. Very, very on brand, very, very on point. For those of you who are listeners who may want to start a podcast or have considered starting a podcast or already have a podcast, Kevin's your guy. Thousands and thousands of episodes. Our team has produced, I think it's almost 3,000. I want to say it's 2,500 plus at this point in terms of episodes that we've produced, not only of this show, but all of our clients. I think we have 20 Next Level Podcast Solutions clients. So we have data points from people in all the different realms of podcasting. Kevin's your guy on that. He's been in this industry for 5 years, studying it every single day. And if you want to get better at podcasting and you want to grow a podcast, he is the way. And Podcast Growth U is a free resource. Podcasting, about podcasting. Check it out.
Next Level Nation. Alan, I know my Wi-Fi is jeffing, no worries. Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1084. If it was easy, everyone would have the results you want. That's going to be a very exciting episode. I am thoroughly, what's the word I'm looking for? Jazzed to talk about. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.